Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to ShowX Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado.
Hey, wait a second. I'm on the show too, and I don't get any billing at all? Well, I know how to solve this. Soldater, Mad March! You're listening to Show X with our favorite Scotsman Ken, our child of the corn Wayne, currently living in Colorado, and Todd, who now has an army of angry Norwegians at his back. Enjoy the show! Fun fact about the army of Norwegians, they work for pickled herring.
Ooh. See, this is why I could never conscript
Which is plentiful and cheap.
Yes, plentiful and indeed.
Depends on where you're at.
Cheap.
I don't have much accessible here in the middle of Colorado in the Rocky Mountains, so I believe I am lacking.
It's a delicacy here on Hoth.
Nice. So first thing, I do want to throw a shout out to Ken, because for people who are watching the show, if you look and you notice our little inset graphics about like the start of the show and going in, that we continue to try to add some flavor and fun to it. And so now we have these little animations going for the introduction video and such, and that is Ken. So thank you very much for that, sir.
Yeah, it looks good, doesn't it? It's a little janky. Like I think whenever the animation repeats, it kind of struggles a little bit.
It depends on the animation.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's if it's a little janky, it's okay. Like there was an entire generation of first-person shooter games that were all a little janky because they were on the build engine. Right?
But when they happened, we all thought they were great.
Well, so there are three that are really good, right? The one with Lo Wang in it. That one, Duke Nukem 3D, and Blood.
Yeah, I say Blood
are the three good ones.
Samurai Warrior was the other one, or was it?
Yeah, maybe something like that. I don't.
I have the like updated and somewhere in my Steam list version
Build
of
engine shooter with Lo Wang.
Yeah, that one was so tongue in cheek.
Shadow Warrior.
Shadow Warrior. Okay.
Oh, I love Shadow Warrior, man.
Yeah. No, that's on the same engine as Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah, the remake of Shadow Warrior is also really good, by the way.
Is it
Shadow
really?
Warrior 2 as well. Yeah, highly recommend it.
I was gonna say, did I get that one? It is stupid, but it is the same kind of fun. Better than the remakes of Duke Nukem.
The humor's so bad, it's amazing. My favorite part is there's a couple of secrets in the game where, like, if you go into like this hidden area, I didn't even know about this because I never played the original, right? So I only played the remake. And I went into this secret area. I think if you go through a waterfall and you find these like maidens washing under the waterfall in the original game, but in the new game you go through this waterfall. And there's this beautiful 4K, well, not it's 4K, but like HD textures and everything. It looks gorgeous. You go through this waterfall and it turns into the same as it used to be in the old game, and they're all pixelated. The whole area is pixelated. It's so
fantastic.
Cool. You just fall back into the old engine. Beautiful stuff.
That's neat.
That's one of the things I always liked about Doom 2016. Because it did the same thing. We got to the secret open areas. It was like recreated levels from the original with the old textures.
Yes.
It's just like, stepping into the past. That was always fun.
Yes. I love that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's such a good callback.
I did want to share at the top of the show here about some geekdom that I had. And it's because you guys all know I like to play with technology as a whole. Well, I recently acquired something new for technology's sake. And there's some pictures I think I shared over in the Discord channel. If you go over there and look in the shooter side or something in there, or somewhere I shared it there. But I was going on air show real quick some of the results of. And basically what it is I finally picked up my first resin 3D printer. And so I wanted to share like the first test print that came off of it. Because resin builds differently than traditional FDM.
Cool.
And it allows you to do some really ridiculous detail compared to when you're extruding plastic. And to give an example, like one of the other test prints that came with. So the classic is the lattice cube, which is basically what this is. Just a cube that prints down and kind of like it hangs and it prints upside down the prints because they start on the print bed and then it slowly grows its way out. And the newer ones are UV printers versus the old ones, which used like lasers to excite them. These cure with UV light. So then this one is an actual test print that shows like tolerances and things. The ability for a printer to print fine detail and shapes.
Wow.
And so it's this really little, just like plate of it. And even things like it has a little sphere shape on it and stuff.
Yes,
It just comes out super great detail. But what basically pushed me over into finally getting one is I was recently commissioned for a 3D print of a D&D miniature for a friend of mine. And I've done it before for someone else, but it was such a small print that I was just like, man, I don't know if I'm going to, it worked and I had to clean it up a bunch, but it's pushing out plastic. So it kind of warps and this and that a little bit. But I went and was like, I bet you that would look amazing in a resin print. So I went back and acquired basically, it was on my list anyways, but it pushed me over the edge to say when to get it and to pull the trigger now, basically. And so for the same model, I wish I had the other one to compare to, but I'd already given it to him. I printed his miniature, which is this little archer guy, and I'll hold it up especially for the camera online. But it's this little, you can see, compared to my fingers, right? It's like less than my thumb. But the details in it are just phenomenal. And so I sent him a picture and he was just like, oh my God, I want that. And then to also give it some level of like understanding of where it can go, one of the models I'd printed way back in the day for to have on my desk at work is a Space Marine from 40K.
That's cool. Yeah, I like it.
And so essentially the idea of what could you do with it, and this is just in the color of the resin. This came with like a somewhat clear green, but you could easily paint it and have full figs. And so, yeah, I've moved up in the world, if you will, to resin prints.
Nice.
Now, at the same time, there's some challenge with it, and I'm still learning because it's all new. Because the resin it prints with is quite toxic. And so you have to wear gloves. It has fumes, and I have a washing station with it to help clean up the prints.
If there's a buildup of xenon gas, you need to shut down the reactor for 24 hours. Let it clean out before you start the reactor back up again.
Yeah, so I have to play with it because you also I wash the prints to get better detail. It was suggested by one of the groups I'm in online about. You basically use isopropyl prophylactic whatever alcohol. I can never say that, but use alcohol
isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah, that stuff. To clear off the residual wet resin, because otherwise when it's on there, once you bake it under UV light, those globs will be on there as well. So you rinse it to make sure you're down to just the actual detail of the model. But that alcohol smell, it builds up as well as the resin itself. And so you handle it all with gloves until you put it. And I also got a little curing station where it has UV lights and reflective material inside to kind of bombard it and rotates the object to help cure it faster. And then because I'm not sure how long curing time should be, I also put them in my window after the initial cure to just let them bake in the sun a little bit to just over time slow do it. So far, we'll see. It seems pretty cool. So I've got some projects lined up to do so I can start doing some nice pretty ones. And one of my goals is to cast a few things with detail and then reverse it and see if I can actually do, because I know people who do this all the time, but reverse mold it so that I can actually then pour props and stuff with some kind of material, because I'd like to work with some dense foam.
So for those of you that would like a YouTube channel of doing all of that kind of stuff, recommend a YouTube channel called Chemical Force. And one of them is just what happens when liquid ammonia contacts chromal chloride? Chromal chloride is one of the most poisonous and corrosive substances in existence. And it's let's dump some ammonia on it and
sounds muy
watch
bad.
What happens. Yeah,
that's cool.
Good stuff.
Chemistry geeks everywhere love it.
Chemistry. If I had not been better at physics than I was at chemistry, I would have been a chemistry geek.
there is some really cool stuff going on with chemistry, admittedly. And for those in the pre-show, you saw I was sharing a video outside. Everyone here in Colorado knows, because we're basically sitting on about a foot of snow right now that's fallen, and we have a couple more days that'll likely come. The rest of today, and then like Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll probably get some more. But I had shared the necessary video out my security camera of like, see, that is snow. I'm not going anywhere today. So
nope.
Fun times.
Nope.
Right.
This would be one of those days. My guideline for whether or not I would actually go into the office would be if the snow was over the air dam on the Mustang. And this would be one of those days where I could just pull the blinds open at about 7 o'clock in the evening and go, nah, I'm not going to work tomorrow.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, as Legends, because he's in our same boat here, he's like, chances of me going to work tomorrow are dwindling. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be there. And I'm pretty sure I'll have to park outside of where I have to, because they'll have the parking lot I'd like to go to closed so that they can clear it.
Yeah.
So yay!
All right, I want to do one geek thing real quick because I haven't advertised it on the podcast yet. But Final Fantasy XIV is dead. The Mistress of Giggles said not only no but hell no. Apparently the control scheme. But I just
installed it.
I know. Apparently the control scheme on a PS4 with a PS4 controller not so good. But apparently you can also plug in a mouse and keyboard into your PS4 and that sucks less. Apparently, all I can say for it is it was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad like on a PC with a super widescreen monitor. So our backup plan, which is what I wanted to do in the first place, but we are playing WoW Classic on Netherguard Keep EU. And so the plan is to to basically recreate what I did 15 years ago with John Paul and Sir Pencer and Hordak, where we essentially had 4 people and did all the 5-person content with 4 people. Now we are going to get 5 people at least, so we're gonna do the 5-person content with 5 people. Instead of 4, but we're gonna start with Ragefire Chasm, and we're gonna run instances, a couple of days a week up until the level 60 stuff, and we'll run that until everybody's geared. And then when TBC starts, we're gonna run all of that stuff too, and hopefully there'll be enough people that we can take some shots at Karazhan. When as TBC run its course. So Netherguard Keep EU on WoW Classic. Otherwise, you can message me if you've got access to the ShowX Discord, and I'll let you into the guild, what will be the guild Discord, but we don't have enough people for a guild yet. I'm getting all the nostalgia feels because it is what I remember from 15 years ago, and it's nice.
Nice.
It is nice.
I'm glad you're enjoying that aspect of it. I mean, that nostalgia is something special. You know, it's funny how you fall right back into it. It's like riding a bike. You know exactly what to do and how to do everything.
Yep. I did play a little bit of non-Shadowlands retail.
Oh, right.
And I rolled a troll priest, and I was level 10 in 20 minutes. Or 30 minutes. Like it did not take long. And then I noticed you got like shadow form at level 10. And I was thinking to myself, you know, okay, that's fine. But there was something epic about getting shadow form. Like the leveling as a shadow priest is fine, but not great. Yeah, like I had a far easier time with it as a rogue or a mage or anything like that, right? So, like, it's fun enough and all that, but like when you got to level 40 and you finally got shadow form and you got a 15% increase in damage and a 15% reduction in damage taken. And it's like, oh, finally, like this is what this build is supposed to be. It's so funny. Like the shadow spec for priests in WoW Vanilla really feels like it was designed with respecking in mind. Because it doesn't blow up until 40. So you're almost better off like leveling disc or leveling holy until you hit 40. And then spending the money on the respec so you can go full shadow all in one fell swoop and fill out 40 to 60 in the other tree, probably disc or whatever. So yeah, it's just it's interesting. It's interesting to look at it through the lens of another 15 years of experience of there being a million MMOs out there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's learning lessons from everybody else and what that sort of turned into.
Okay.
But I will save that I will save some of this for the main topic. But
okay.
I just wanted to throw it out, advertise. There's no guild name yet. We'll take a poll of who's around to sign the guild charter. My original thought is to go with imaginary DPS.
I suggest my original favorite from when I got banned from WoW for a while for having this guild name: 2 Trolls, 1 Cup.
Oh yes. Serpenser also named it like the original guild name, BFSOT.
Yep, which we can't truly share on air.
Think you can say those words on there anymore.
I don't think so.
But the first 4 are big fat sweaty Oprah.
Yeah. Yep. Biffsot.
Yep, Biffsot.
Oh, that's funny. Now we'll get into it. What was the other thing I was going to bring up right at the top? Shoot, I just lost it. There was something else I want to say. Oh, it sucks. It's for anyone who's out there and can celebrate. I can't get out of the house to do it, but happy Pi Day to everybody.
Oh yeah, happy Pi Day, everyone.
Steak and the month after Valentine's Day.
It's also Steak and Fellatio Day.
Yeah, which also I can't do anything about. So I guess I will just have to hope everyone else out there celebrating the day well.
I also want to give a shout out as well today. This is a bit more of a somber note. So I saw this on social medias and such, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Beck and John, who have sadly lost their pup, Gizmo. I know it's an incredibly hard thing to lose a dog, especially one of the age that you lost your pup, and that's just very, very sad. We're incredibly attached to our dogs, and we know how incredibly difficult it is to lose a pet. It's a member of the family. So shout out to you guys. I feel your pain. I've been there before, and I know it's going to be a hard week, a hard month, and a hard year. But you got to remember all the good times that you had with Gizmo, and that you made Gizmo's life a long, happy, enjoyable one. So it was all worth it.
All right. So today we are going to try to get into a little bit about talking about things of the past year. It has been a trying year for all of us in some form or another. And specifically, though, as we looked at it and with everything that's gone on with the pandemic and how it's affected the world at large, not just the United States, but everyone, and how much you can go out and about, see people in person and things like that, and how the world's had to adjust to it. One of the questions that comes up, though, is, and this is kind of an odd one to form, but was everything about it bad? And in that question, we wanted to focus specifically on kind of our niche here about gaming and how the pandemic and how all that's been happening with it affected the lives of gamers and how we as groups essentially reacted to having to be locked away, no longer being able to socialize in public as readily, and things like that. So that's what we were wanting to get into and explore and talk about a bit today, to kind of see what has essentially 2020 been like for gamers. So to kick things off on that note, I wanted to go in with, I actually found some articles about this specifically. And let's see, where did I want to start on that one? I think Valve, this little quick note from hyperbeast.com. And this one is a quick one saying, gamers spent 31 billion hours playing games on Steam in 2020. Now, of course, that's just a big number. Yeah. But the key is, how does that compare? And again, this is a real short one to kick things off, but the article goes, Valve has released the 2020 statistics for Steam, and the numbers are showing massive growth for video game distribution platform. According to Valve, gamers spent a whopping 31.3 billion hours on Steam over the course of 2020, making a 50% surge over 2019's 20.8 billion hours recorded.
Oh my God.
The service brought in 120 million active users monthly, 62.6 million daily active players, and managed to reach a peak of 24.8 million concurrent users. That's right, just on Steam alone, at one moment in time, there were 24.8 million people logged in and playing something via Steam.
I bet also, that was in February or March.
I actually haven't looked to see the graphs and where they peak out. There were also 21.4% more games purchased in 2020 compared to the year prior, with 2.6 million users buying a game for their very first time every single month. So that's like new subscribers to Steam, new people buying games. And it goes into, like, of course, some of the ones specific to the last year of some of the big ones that hit, like Fall Guys, Among Us, Phasmophobia, and even Cyberpunk 2077. So that's just some stats to kind of kick off the conversation about what happened in 2020. What I'd love to hear from you guys each to start our conversation, kind of like specifically to you, how did you feel you transitioned or affected differently in some ways, or did it even, your normal everyday life as you were suddenly found yourself perhaps not going into the office as often, or not able to go out of doors and do kind of your traditional activities that you might have done elsewhere, or maybe you did it anyways, and so it was like, wait, something happened? I don't know. Ken, how about yourself? What did you kind of notice in your online gaming, those kind of activities, or just in general how things changed for you as lockdowns and things like that started occurring?
So one of the major things that started happening was me and some of my buddies from back in Scotland suddenly started playing Fortnite again, and we all started playing together. And we've been doing that weekly pretty much for the past year now. Well,
oh, wow.
Almost exactly a year now. Because it's just such an easy platform for, even though I was in America, those guys were all still close to each other, so they still see each other in person. But it became that every Thursday night is now our time that we all still get to hang out and see each other. And it doesn't matter if they're only 3 miles apart from each other; they're not allowed to see each other. The rules are very strict in Britain about leaving towns and stuff. There's like bubbles and things like this that you're not allowed to leave. So to them, they were as far apart as I was to them, effectively, in the fact they can't see each other. So. The pandemic brought brought a huge distance amongst people who are actually physically close to each other. So online gaming became our platform to do that, and we've now been playing Fortnite a whole bunch. And sometimes we don't even we don't really do it to play Fortnite. We do it really just to hang out, I guess. But it's made us branch into more of the creative aspects of the game. There's a creative mode where you can download user-generated maps, and that's a lot of fun. We end up doing a lot of silly things in there. It's like a Warcraft 3 and stuff on custom maps. You can do anything. It's kind of the same in Fortnite. There's just a huge variety of types of games that are played. There's hide and seek, there's tag, there's, cat and mouse games, robber and cop games, everything. So that's been a lot of fun. Otherwise, I can say that I've seen that my number of friends online has increased drastically. I think it's just because there's so many people working from home, and I think people are less. I think working hours are generally less strict these days. I don't think everybody really does 9 to 5 anymore. I think it's more just get tasks done, and if you take an hour off for lunch to go play games, nobody cares anymore. That's totally fine, which is nice. I kind of say the same for people who obviously have to work, in a secure environment or anything. That's different. But people who do remote work from home, I think people are more relaxed about taking time to go get coffee or go watch a TV show or whatever. That's all very chill. So I've seen people playing games throughout the day, random times that you wouldn't expect them on, including myself.
Nice. Okay. How about yourself, Todd? You know, that kind of same experience or just difference or kind of, because I mean, this really, for most of us, kicked off kind of just the beginning of 2020. Because I remember it didn't become a real thing until somewhere in like April, when for me here, everything started just like big, significant change in what you're doing in your daily life.
Yeah, so the like double secret probation lockdown sort of turned one in Norway. I have a very, very different perspective on this because to me, like we finally had the conversation about the nature of work in a civilian unclassified environment that we should have had 15 years ago.
Yep.
Which is the internet is everywhere. High-speed internet is in every major city. Why does anybody have to go to an office ever?
Yep.
Right?
It's bad for the environment. It costs the company money. There's no reason for it.
So the Norwegian government puts everything on double secret probation lockdown. You can't go to the office. And so I'm working on a better computer with more screen real estate. I have discrete tasks that I get done, and like Ken said, right? You know, if I take a break at 2:00 in the afternoon because I'm feeling tired to go watch Twitch or a YouTube video or play Europa for an hour, it's not like there's any nanny over my shoulder, which is the exact opposite of cubicle hell. Right?
Yes.
The whole point of cubicle hell is that everybody can see everybody. And it's like that old joke. Why do you always take two Mormons fishing?
I don't think I know this one.
Because if you only take one, he'll drink all your beer.
Gotcha.
Right? So the whole point of that joke is if there are two there, they'll keep each other honest. You get to drink all of your beer because they can't. Anyway, so there's nobody, like I said, there's no nanny, right? So we were all in cubicle hell. We're all each other's nannies, and there's no nanny anymore. I game more, I guess, but I gamed a lot anyway because
right.
I'm a hermit to begin with, so for me. Right, and I guess this is where the perspective is different. Outside of the loss of life, which is horrible, right?
Yeah.
The threat of the virus, I'll say, not the worst thing in the universe. Like I have to stay home. I have to, I go out and my face is covered. I only go out to buy food. And if nothing else, like I go out, I buy food, I come back, or I get groceries delivered to my house. I don't go to the office. We're having meetings online all the time, of different descriptions, and I've got even more time to dedicate to my hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for the people like us who our hobbies are inside and not particularly directly physically social, and our work allows it, I think the pandemic has been great for us. I mean, I personally am happier in this situation.
And we're gonna be in this weird, at least in Norway, we're gonna be in this weird catch-22 for at least the next year, I think. Where like it was a beautiful day out today. It was warm enough that I was uncomfortably warm in my heavy hoodie.
Gotcha.
In the sun. So I took my heavy hoodie off when I was outside today, and it was fine. I wouldn't necessarily call it t-shirt weather because as soon as you got into the shade, it was really freaking cold. But in the sun, it was dope, right? It's sort of the first really nice day toward the middle or end of March, and it seemed like everyone was outside. And most of them not wearing face protection.
Yeah, seen that too.
Right?
We're seeing the inverse of last year.
Yeah. And so Oslo went on sort of hyper lockdown again. And so nobody's going to the office. You're not supposed to ride public transportation except when absolutely necessary, and so on and so forth. And yet people are out recreationally, right? Congregating in small groups, and nobody's got face masks on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
I've seen the number of masks here drop significantly because people are now thinking, oh, well, the vaccine's out. And we got this weird thing where it's kind of it's interesting. I don't know if there's a name for this kind of type of correlation or whatever it is, because you saw the same thing with like as UBI is going to be coming in, right? Should I work or should I not? How much should I work? How much shouldn't I work? If you bring in UBI too fast, then people are going to start quitting their jobs and the economy is going to fail, right? We're going to have big problems. If you bring it in very, very slow, it'll be fine, but people won't like it being that slow. So you have to find this perfect, reasonable amount that doesn't disrupt the economy but can still help people as soon as possible.
Yeah, Ken, the data from the Stockton, California trial on UBI does not bear that out. By the way. So the sort of the big the people who got the UBI were more likely to go looking for jobs, and their employment rate was actually higher than the control group.
Wow.
And the overwhelming majority of the money was spent on necessities. So very little of it was spent on frivolities.
Yeah.
Like something like 90+% of the money was spent on food, rent, and utilities.
Like almost like what it's meant for.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's interesting. I actually didn't realize that because I have the similar concern that Ken does about that kind of thing, because I figured you would need other things in place around things like cost of, name it, being residence primarily / healthcare, then other, somewhat worked into the system before it would work well across the board. So that's actually really interesting to hear, but it bears to, I think, the ideal of what everyone's hoping for with the UBI is that people will be able to do what they want.
It's one trial in California, so
true.
You know, who knows what happens? What's that?
The reason I bring it up though is because I'm not talking about UBI specifically. I'm saying that sort of relationship of UBI and how fast it's being brought in changes how people are going to act, right? And I think it's going to be the same thing with the vaccine. We need to bring it in as soon as possible, because if we don't, people are going to start doing what they're doing now. They're going to start acting like the vaccine's here, so we're already fixed, and we're going to have huge outbreaks because people are going to stop wearing masks and such.
Well, so
that's correlation.
And especially for the Scandinavian countries that are naturally outside activity cultured, especially in any day that's good enough to be outside, you go outside.
Okay. Well, and it's interesting because living in a state here in Colorado, which is a very outdoor active state, I witnessed even during things, right, that essentially even I was a part of it, having filtered groups that were, you are my, 5 people I actually see, we hang out with and have dinners and that kind of thing. And therefore we got comfortable not masking up together. And so when we do activities outdoors, go running, things like that, we would do similar. We'd run without masks and stuff like that, go hiking without masks. But as soon as we would cross paths with someone else, we would mask up, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen a lot here in Colorado.
It's common sense, right? A lot of people lack it.
Well, there's a challenge that with one of the biggest problems I think of this whole thing has been fatigue, right? Because just people are unhappy that there are restrictions on activities they can do, period. And take it to whatever way they react to that, and whether some people are accepting of the reality and others who are just to have no tolerance or are too tired of it. But I think all of us suffer from fatigue at some level, all of us, because there were just things that we had as our norms that we don't today, be it social norms or just activity norms, whatever it was. Because even for those people who were hanging out maybe at home mostly, you still might have had like the place you would go, like a library or something to get away and enjoy, that there were people about, even if you weren't interacting with people. So it's been an effect on everyone. Like for me personally, when it comes to the overall gaming thing, on my piece of it, I had a weird, unique thing that once things got locked down, I actually got banned from work for a period of time. And so I had about a 3-month period where I was still getting paid, but not able to go to the office and work, and contractually not allowed to work from home. It was this weird independent thing. There were only a handful of us that really got hit like this. So I was essentially put on like a 3-month vacation, which was weird. I had an opportunity to use a lot of that to pick up, kind of like what Mika was saying in the chat, a bunch of different activities and things that I hadn't been doing prior. Or for me, because I'm always at a limit of hobbies that I would like to spend time on and never enough time to really delve into them. I had an opportunity to see what, as I put it, retirement might be like after things. How would I spend my time? Well, in that little window of 3 months, I found that I did get more active. I was outside running a bit more and like just kind of doing things outdoors more to get some sun things, because heck, the time I would normally be at the 40-hour time sink, I was able to walk outside. I was taking morning tea on my porch every day. It was nice. And waking up without alarms and things like that. Such a wonderful thing. This is why we should retire tomorrow. But along with that, like I found I did play a lot of video games. I caught up and binged a lot of series and stuff. I didn't quite get to the meme of like finishing Netflix, right, or finishing YouTube, but I absolutely watched significant amounts of more specific subjects and just went through a whole series of things. There were quite a few binge days of like, wow, it's amazing. You can sit on your couch and watch 24 hours of TV. That can happen. Yep. That was a good 8 seasons. And so I did some of that, but gaming wise, I was also able to get in depth with some games that I hadn't for some time. And play online with some people. I actually reintroduced to some people I hadn't really hung out with for some time because they were online more. And like friends I hadn't seen in years really online, kind of the other meme that's out there of like getting like, okay guys, I'll see you next week. And then you get the Steam notification has last seen however many months or years ago.
Yeah.
Online kind of thing. Like for me, all of those went away. Right, all of a sudden, Steam list populated constantly.
People were like, "Oh wait, I can do this again."
Right, and I started kind of breaking through some of the Steam list of all these old games. It's like I already own these games. Let's play some of them. And I really did find some time on the computer that way, and I didn't feel stressed about spending like I have a whim, and this really fits for my personality of wanting to spend 8 hours today doing this thing, or not having a limit for me specifically on like when. Because of the schedule thing, right, that you guys are talking about, flexible schedule, in that same vein, maybe I'll stay up a little later tonight because I'm doing this thing. And I'll just let myself sleep in tomorrow, get up whenever, start work, do whatever I'm going to do, and maybe go a little longer or such. And I think heavily to what you guys both were speaking about the flexibility of not having the cube farm, not having someone look over your shoulder. The feeling that when I wanted to be productive, even though it wasn't work-related for me, I could just choose to be productive whenever it hit me. And I really felt like it was better, that I accomplished more doing things like that. And especially things like working out and stuff, because there are times where it's like, with a work schedule, I either have to work out before work or after. And with mine doing 10-hour days, that means I either have to get up at like 3:30 in the morning to go lift or something like that before I go to work. Or as soon as I get home while the sun is still maybe up a bit, go for a run or do something.
I was the exact same. And I love the fact that not only with the pandemic meaning I can just, if I have an hour without meetings, I can just go to the gym. That's cool. But also I'm very lucky because the gym in my apartment building, I leave my apartment and the apartment opposite mine has been changed from an apartment into the gym for the apartment block. So I only take 3 steps out my front door to go to the gym.
That's awesome.
The soccer field that I run intervals and stuff at is like a block and a half away, and it's a public soccer field, so anybody can just go in and use it. Like
that's nice.
It's not locked up the way that kind of soccer field would be in the States, right? Where there's chain link fence and it'd all be locked up, and you could look at it, but don't you dare go on it.
Yeah,
type of thing.
Private property.
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing, right? Having that flexibility of schedule is a massive aspect of it. And while I didn't get to maintain it because basically come June, I was back in the office. And I was one of like 2 or 3 of us that were going back in the office. And it was weird because for a while it was nice because there was no one there, but then also it was also weird, and this highlights one of the challenges, is that getting sucked back into the 40-hour work sync when you don't have an entire population that's doing it was really weird, because there were the meetings, but they started being held on unclass, open, not in a secure environment.
Right.
And that changed things a bit. Still had them, a lot of discussion, a lot of work being done in that constrained environment. But it meant that I realized suddenly how many other meetings I used to go to that, and I think anybody who's been in the corporate field would feel this way, are completely unnecessary.
Yes.
Yes. Did you ever see what's his freaking name? Monty Python dude. I can't believe I forgot his name.
John Cleese, Eric Idle.
John Cleese, yes.
Yeah.
Meetings, bloody meetings. Have you seen? He did a little like a 30-minute tutorial on when meetings are useless, and we had to watch that on my first day at HP.
Oh, that's actually hilarious.
Funny because then it proceeded to have so many useless meetings.
Oh yeah.
But that's the thing, right? And for me, I really ran into, because I've always had the joke in my own head and didn't expend it much because I figured I'd be insulting half the people I worked around, that there are people whose entire jobs are defined by meetings, and yet you kind of think then do you matter? should you be here if
well, if you're
all you do is meetings?
That makes sense, right?
But even then, unless you're actively making decisions, and I don't remember the last meeting I've been to where real decisions have been made. I find real decisions are made through phone calls and emails, that meetings are at best a sharing of information and allowing people to realize you are going to be necessary for the decision, so we'll get back to you on an email chain, right? We may have a TEM at some point that actually gets into details about something where in-person discussion about the details and interaction back and forth of complaining and understanding matters, but that's like one meeting a month where something like that actually occurs.
It depends on your field, right? I'd say most of my meetings are very useful. In particular, I have quite a lot of meetings a week that are coding meetings. Like I'll share my screen or they'll share their screen and we'll code together. I'll be like, oh, think about that or that design point or do this or do that.
Yeah, we'll interactive engineering stuff. Yeah.
That's very
I've had one of those.
I've had a of those. Yeah, no, I mean, it happens.
I don't write a lot of code. But I did have the opportunity to do some collaboration with somebody who's working on the same kind of stuff as I am, but for a different oil and gas company. And we got a chance to talk shop and show different things, and believe it or not, it actually helped a ton to do that.
Well, and I am a big advocate of in-person meetings that matter. Because I'm actually one of those guys who, with my job, I had a lot of opportunities to travel the country for conferences and such. And I always laugh because there's half of the conference to go there and they're doing the boondoggle thing, right? They'd go and just find a reason to use company money to go somewhere and visit and talk to people, right, and have fun. I would go and actually seek out people that I either didn't know were in the industry or they would talk about a subject and I'd be like, we need to chat because what you're talking about is relevant to what I do at work. And then I would pull them aside after their brief or whatever and actually have sidebars and meetings. And I'd be working 8-10-hour days at conferences where other people, I don't know what.
Honestly, I'm guilty of both. Because, I mean, we would go to, I mean, it's continental Europe, right? So Prague and Berlin and
you make the most of it while you're there.
Oh yeah,
Utrecht in the Netherlands, and they build that stuff into the schedule, right? So, actually, now I got a couple of stories now that you mentioned that. But we took a tour of Berlin, like a bus tour of Berlin, and then we went to this really nice restaurant. I got absolutely hammered that night, and I'm getting a software demo of a requirement management tool with a raging hangover.
Oh, come on. And who in the corporate world who's had a brief or a demo or something has not done it not in top shape at least once?
Just brutal. Absolutely brutal. Like the headache's starting to come on. I'm sucking down coffee and water. as quick as I possibly can. Like, if it's made up of dihydrogen monoxide, just like let me mainline that stuff, man, because I need.
Yeah. We've all
The
been
other
there.
when they built in a canal tour in Utrecht when I was there, and I got sick right
Oh, no.
before
Ouch.
right before the conference, and I went anyway.
Oof.
And so it was cold because it was like fall. Is it like October? Yeah, it was like October in the Netherlands, so it was cold. And I am shivering because my fever hit the second day of the end of day one of the conference, and I had a fever hit, and so I am just shuddering. I am so cold, and it's cold, and we're in this boat, and we're on the canals, and I mean we're looking at people's. You're essentially, when you're on the boat in the canal, in some places you're looking in people's front windows.
Okay.
Because their apartments or their domiciles or whatever are right on the water on the canal,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, wow, those are really nice houses. I would really like to see more of this, but I am so cold. I had a dream that night between it was second night. Between day 2 and day 3, I had a dream that I went to the water park.
Okay.
And when I have high fevers that break, I always have that dream. That's the dream that I have. I have a dream that I go to the water park.
Interesting.
And at some point I will wake up and it's like, oh, and I won't go into any more details because it's kind of
it's coming at that point.
Yeah. No, it's at some point during the night the fever breaks, right?
Yeah. No, so
exactly.
So it's funny you mentioned all that, Todd, because I find that in academia, a conference, if you don't do the fun stuff, like I remember when I went to a conference with a fellow PhD student at one point, and this person was quite socially anxious, as you can imagine, is common in academia. And she said, I don't think I'm going to go to the social things because it makes me kind of like, I just can't really do it. And I said to her, you're only going to be experiencing about 10% of the purpose of a conference if you don't do the social stuff. Because the real, you're here to present papers, you're here to meet people in a professional setting, but you're not actually going to meet people and actually find collaborators for your future career and future work if you don't talk to them over beer and over coffee and over dinner. That is correct. Number one. That is by far the purpose of conferences. Correct. Regardless of everything else that's advertised.
Yeah, which is a problem for me because I'm an outgoing introvert.
Yeah,
right?
Me too.
I
too.
I think all of us are, which is what makes the show interesting.
Well, and I didn't learn that until 3 or 4 years ago, where I thought I was an extrovert, but I was just so extroverted that I exhausted myself.
Yes.
Right? Because, I've been performing in front of a microphone at different times, basically since high school.
Yep.
And so it's very easy for me when up in front of a crowd at a conference or a gathering or something to go into presenter mode.
Yep.
And start talking authoritatively and stuff like that. But I get done with that stuff and I'm just gassed.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
No, it's funny because I know a lot of us that are like that. I always joked on Sir Spencer because he's often like that. You catch him at work and he's just like, and so he's out the door. He's like, no. Leave me alone. No.
He gets outside the office. He's like the chillest dude ever.
Yeah. No, so I absolutely feel that. But you're right, Ken. The interactions beyond the briefings are what make conferences a thing. And it's funny. I'm actually similar to Spencer. I'm very central when I've done the tests. Like, I think I go to like a 60% to 65%, somewhere in there, extrovert. So I lean towards it. But I know I have my introvert pieces. Like, I know that's there. So we've been talking a little bit about like our personal interactions for the pandemic and what it did for us gaming. It sounds like all of us found something more in our gaming, even if it wasn't major, but just more. I found more of everything, but I definitely found it in the gaming side of the world. What's interesting is how it affected the world at large. And so another article I have, and this one's from analyticinsight.net. And it talks about some of the just gaming in general. Actually, is it this one? Or which one? Oh, no. I'll do this one from Digital Trends. Some of the key highlights from this one. And their article, which is Coronavirus, the ongoing ripple effect throughout the gaming industry. Some of the big things they talk about are things that were actually canceled, right? And it makes sense as we're talking about with the conferences, how in 2020, E3 was canceled, right? And it's been the go-to, as they say, annual occurrence of video game industry since the 90s. But the Entertainment Software Association canceled the event, citing that, of course, bringing everyone together in a big conference during a pandemic would be ill-advised. Other things that were canceled, the Game Developers Conference was postponed, and I don't know if it was ever actually sent afterwards. And so you had basically all of those in-person gaming events went away. You did have a couple who tried to do virtual versions of them, as I think we all have run into some level of, you know, the Zoom calls or whatever as everyone talks about, or whatever technology your company or group might use, Discord, WebEx, whatever it might be.
Virtual conferences now as well.
But a lot of things went virtual, which is like, in my opinion, like big organized conference call in many cases. And I think all of us suffered from somebody's got a hot mic out there. We don't need to know about your dog's prostate. Just please, letting you know.
Please use mute.
Yeah. Thank God for the conference software and technologies that were able to implement mute on entry. Thank you for that. Where everybody joining is muted and you have to make a point to unmute yourself. Because as long as I've been in the industry, and even though every phone I run into in the office has a big red button that highlights when you hit mute, almost every call I've ever been on, especially in these times, there is some, and I have ill will towards all of them, who leaves themselves unmuted and is a heavy mouth breather. And I don't know how they hold their phone. If they absolutely they listen by having the mic in their mouth as they're hanging out, like, but man, I can hear the rhythm of if they have a bad lung or something.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't do is I don't ever turn my camera on.
Okay.
When I go to these things, well, because this is my microphone.
Yeah.
Right?
You mean you don't want people to look at you and be like, what?
As well as the podcast. And so I did turn my camera on for one meeting, and somebody, it was the meeting for my company, so we're all friends. But one of the people oh my God, is that your mic? And it's yeah. It's a podcasting mic.
Yeah,
I get that a lot.
No, so it's funny, right? Because I haven't been able to do it from home. I've done it on family calls before, every once in a while, a conference, and I pull down this mic and I'm like, hey! And they're just like, what? Wait, what? Normally, I switch over because it's the standard, right? And I just use the gaming headset mic because that's what people are used to, and so it's fine. But yeah, I've had that happen. And granted, when I'm at work, I have a phone, right? That's how mine goes. But no, that's I can understand, because I've also done the thing where I've gotten on to a call or a Zoom thing, and I've done it where I just get on. So I turn off my lights here, right? Turn off the studio lights, and I come on, I put the mic on, I turn on the studio lights, right? And they're just like, wait, what? Oh, wait, you guys don't all have streaming setups at home?
Yeah, that's right. Y'all
Wayne has an OnlyFans, so he occasionally has to...
Yeah,
wow.
It's the fact that my computer is only cooled by fans. I mean, it's a boring channel. It really is a boring channel. But depending on what I'm doing, I do put the decibel and the RPM of each fan, so you can keep track, when I'm Ethereum mining versus when I'm gaming and stuff like that. You know all about what my fans are doing. I give you the intimate deets.
Only fans.
So
very funny.
Only fans for the $50 a month Patreon subscribers will push the fan up to 1450 RPM.
No. I let them choose the RGB.
Oh
yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, you get to know if I'm running 5500 Kelvin or higher.
Wow.
That's just for you. So some of the other things that came out of things being canceled because of all the production, so all those conferences happened. Some were good about kind of reverting or others, and there were some that already kind of had it, because you'd have things like Nintendo's Treehouse announcements and stuff. They were never in person because Nintendo doesn't play with any conferences. They just happen to film something at the same time that an event's happening somewhere else and release it on their own channel, right? So they weren't at all disrupted by that. But some of the market in gaming that was actual, like all of the initially a lot of the competitive sports, like esport type things and stuff, the CSGO tournaments, the Dota tournaments, things like that got messed because they were based on doing it in person. That's kind of how they did some of the leveling of the field, make sure everyone's playing on the same computers, has the same equipment. That's how they were making sure there were no bots cheating, things like that. And that's how the commentary, all those things, and the production value. And it took a lot of groups, some longer than others, to adapt. And I do want to give a lot of credit to those who adapted. And I think this will go into, as we get out of the break, the second half of where we see the future continuing. After things have changed, we'll get in a little bit more of the history of what actually happened and how things dealt with it. But, tournaments came back before the end of the year and into this year. Tournaments exist again, but they changed significantly. They became how we play at home, all online, right? And it was interesting to watch the companies have to shift their mechanisms and how they did the coverages and things like that. And in a weird blending of the two, where it came from like real life and actually enhanced gaming. I mentioned it before on the show, but it was auto racing. Auto racing was one of the industries that I felt adapted faster than almost anything else out there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was
Because they had those big... didn't they have people do stuff in like big sit-in simulators or whatever?
They did. Well, everything from my computer with an all right, like gaming setup to most of them were sponsored companies, right? Where go figure, this was the best thing I think why the auto industry, the racing industry did it so well. Most of these companies already had full-on digital simulators because that's how their people train. They already had the full force feedback motion simulators with great either VR or full-on multiple screens in their offices, because you can't take a multi-million-dollar race car on the track every day. But you can put a person in a digital simulator with full physics monitoring on it and go. And one of the beautiful things about racing sims across the board is they try every day to be as realistic as possible. And so it was barely, in many ways, a lift and shift over to doing full digital race events. They had to adjust some of the rules because, in a digital environment, you can destroy someone else's car and you're like, oh no, it didn't cost us millions of dollars. Right? And so they had to come up with little situations. And because the physics, there's still that lack of seat experience that a professional driver has from a simulator to a real car. Like you can tell what your car is doing. Plus in the simulator, the things about mechanical failures and stuff like there's all these little things that you kind of have to adjust based on reality. But man, not only the ability to simulate an event and create something that everyone could watch and enjoy, you were also, the coverage of it was phenomenal, because whichever engines they were using, the people behind the production were quick to figure out how to give the best camera angles, and they had the leg up because most racing sims also try to give you the best camera angle for any corner, for any, because they already know it, right, in the track.
Right.
And so back from the old Gran Turismo days, you could do, I don't know if you guys ever did this on any racing sim, I always loved them, but when you do a playback of like a race that you actually did really well in, and you could just sit back and let it do I think Gran Turismo was the first one that introduced it on PlayStation, like the auto like playback feature where it did the cinematic camera.
Oh,
and
no.
Man, it had some great angles because it would know this is straightaway. And so it would do like a pseudo helicopter pan around you as you're going straight. And then as you get into a corner, it would rotate over to like this perfect corner shot as you come in so you could see the dip and tires and everything, the brakes heat up. And it was just perfect, right? And so it's almost like how League of Legends built their auto follow camera. They already had it built into racing sims. They just had to pick, I think, honestly, I'd love to see the switchboard behind it. But the people who are like, and now I'll go to this racer, and you just pick them from the list, and the camera's already centered on them. Now this racer, now this racer. And they even had like a pit crew in there talking, doing the normal kind of information about laps and what you're doing, and they were able to simulate gas and pit times and all of those things, and it was great. And so there were some industries out there who adapted, and that was really cool. All right, so with this, we're going to take a quick break so everyone can get refreshed. I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the state of things, and then hopefully we'll transition into a discussion about what might stick, right? What have we learned as, who knows, in this next year of transition, hopefully to get out of pandemic mode and into something else, what might persist beyond that, what we hope does, what we think will happen, things like that. I'm going to take this break and play about 3.5 minute OC remix song, and this one being a Mega Man Battle Network remix called Let's Bust Some Viruses. So we'll listen to this. We'll be right back, and we'll continue the conversation along with a couple emails from Ionis and Lantis. So you're watching ShowX here on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere you might catch us. Please share us with your friends. We'd love to have the conversation without you, and thank you for chatting. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I wanted to... Oh, no, it's not doing the thing. I'll have to try to get it again. I was trying to
Curses.
Well, I wanted to show. I thought I'd brought it in here as well, but maybe I didn't. I was going to show an update to my snow situation. To like, how much is there currently?
Like, how much more is there on the ground?
Yeah, so I was going to
Colorado is so strange for weather.
It's really simple, though. Believe it or not. The phenomenon that causes this thing that's going on, like, is it an Albuquerque low this time? I assume.
I don't know what officially is this state. I mean, because this storm was coming, and like north of us got a decent amount, and other places are going to start getting rain from it. Like, I don't know if officially what's the cause of this one or where it's going. And this is just a last minute. Oh wait, see, I did have that. Oh, that's why. Okay, never mind. I did this before.
So for those of you scoring at home, when areas of low pressure sit over New Mexico, because low pressure system airflow is counterclockwise, it pulls warm, moist air off the Gulf of Mexico and throws it essentially right up into the mountains somewhere in Colorado, usually. And there's no place for that air to go because it just goes up against the mountains, goes straight up into the air, and dumps all of its moisture. And so when places like Denver or Colorado Springs, or I guess in an extreme case something like Cheyenne, Wyoming, would have these really big snows, like, usually that's the cause. Not always, but commonly.
Gotcha. Well, and this one's a very wet snow that's come here, as I've basically seen about a good foot accumulation in most places, showing my front door cam of kind of like my tree weighted down over my steps, and the garage cam showing basically that it is still falling, and my cars, both of the cars in front of my house, being pretty well covered. Like, I had taken the Miata out last night when the snow had first fallen, and you couldn't tell now. And at one point earlier in today, you can almost just make out the tracks. A neighbor of mine had taken their snowblower all the way down and cleared off the sidewalk in front of my house, and it's got another good couple inches on it since then. So we'll see how this all finishes. And then I wanted to share an update on how much snow is outside the house right now.
That'll be a fun workout for you when this is all said and done.
I was
shoveling heavy, wet snow.
Yeah, no, I was thinking like, hey, I'll do that after the show today, maybe-ish, or not. We'll see. Nice thing is, as I was joking with a friend earlier, is I purchased my house in Colorado on the proper side of the road. So even though it's a corner lot and I have a lot of sidewalk and steps and driveway to deal with snow and have to clear, the sun helps me out often here, where I only really have to shovel if it's like going to be multiple days without sun. So it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow, so I might be able to get away with not shoveling. We'll see. But we are coming back with some emails, everyone. First, and this kind of came from a part of the chatter that Copy was mentioning, or Lantis, when she first got in here into our chat today, but she has an email that says, "Welcome to Canada," and not about the wintry north. It says, "Hello, Wayne, Todd, and our fearless leader, Dr. Lord Reverend Jedi Master Rear Admiral Professor and Bachelor of Science with the highest of honors, Kenneth Neal Reed II. Good news!
Esquire.
My wonderful partner finally arrived in Canada on March 2nd and is currently serving his mandatory 14-day quarantine period at an Airbnb on the other side of town. I've been leaving food at his doorstep and waving at him through the window. I can't wait to play some local co-op once we're finally reunited." Not a euphemism, I'm sure. "We played the demo of Cat Quest 2 on his PS4 back in August when we got married, but didn't have time for much else before we had to part ways again. Oh, and Phantasy Star Online. There will always be more Phantasy Star Online, and not just because our immigration lawyer has asked for screenshots to submit with our application. So exciting! See you next zombie. Much love, friends." That coming from Chaos Sorcerer Lantis Greyfield, the level 142 floor tanking Thomar of Ephenia. So thank you for giving us an update.
142.
Yes. Oh, man. Lantis has been playing PSO since before you could play PSO online outside of anywhere but Japan, I think. So, yeah. So congratulations, Copy/Lantis, that your significant other is in country and soon,
That's
actually
fantastic
very
news.
soon now, like 2 days away, I guess, doing the math on this, arrival from you being able to interact directly. So it makes sense that you're getting things sorted today to welcome his arrival. Awesome. Continuing on to, oh boy, an email from Ionis. Glad I have my mead here. As I was jokingly saying, brought to you by Drakkar Meadery, geeks in cosplay for you, who often provide the nectar of the gods. So anyhow, Ionis has one called Stories from Ionis Land. Introduction number 1. Hello, essence of RP. I mean, misses with 20 and 7 joys at the end of it. That's correct. That's how many intellect potions I drank. I've been doing RP-related crap since forever, it seems. From tabletop D&D sessions through video game role-playing, ending with some weird-ass role-playing in Crusader Kings 2. Yeah, I went there. From the tabletop days, I remember always playing the anti-hero characters, sort of. A, quote, thief with a heart of gold. Only my heart was more like pyrite, and even that had some impurities. I played a bard who would pathologically lie to everybody. That character was based on Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. I once played a Usurian nobleman, 7th Sea system, who pretended he was a vampire. He wasn't a vampire, of course. He just pretended to be one so he could feel mysterious and important. I played a priest who was too fond of young boys. I played a thief who was falling in love with every female NPC with good looks. I never cared to be a hero, and I never played one. My most heroic actions ever I ever did was kicking the head of my fellow player who was decapitated seconds ago by an orcish war chief. Said head managed to connect with said orc's underbelly, making him inert for long enough for my companions to take back initiative and win the day. Rolling 20 never again felt so gratifying. Number 2, Neverwinter Nights, IFS, or IFS.
Oh, I used to play that when I was like 10, 11. Jeez.
And yet my favorite story from the olden days comes from a Neverwinter Nights game. Neverwinter Nights used to have a very vibrant online community with servers created and hosted by players enforcing their own set of rules and their own game master team carrying stories for different adventuring groups playing on the server. Imagine WoW, just smaller, with up to 40 players per server. I played a cleric called Ifs Wendelgav. He was an absolute insane priest of a made-up deity, Zip. He would talk to shadows, perform various rituals in rat-infested cellars. You know, your normal crazy cleric stuff. I played him for the lulz, and to be contrarian, arse. Next to all the pompous, quote, heroes around without any personality, Ifs was a vibrant and memorable fellow to populate the world. His storyline took a massive shift, however, when the server was about to go into an overhaul. Administration wanted to introduce some big changes, which required the server to be, at least partially, rebuilt. It meant wipe of all old characters starting a new, improved database. So what was needed was the end of the world. And who other than a crazy priest to bring his demonic god Zip to the physical plane? Suddenly, Ice became a linchpin of a server-wide event, which ended in destruction of the whole world. See? I had the time of my life playing this crazy cleric whose visions finally made sense and the shadows started responding back to him. I've also inspired some fan art at the time, which is in the attachment. Ooh. All right. Number 3, Mass Effect Commander Shepard. This is all RP for those who weren't on last week. In 2019, I sat down to play Mass Effect 1 again. I had been a good few years since my last playthrough prior to the release of Mass Effect 3, so I figured it was about time to play it again. I started the game with a very strong desire to play Shepard true to who he would be. A member of Alliance military in the rank of Commander, a type of no-nonsense, goal-oriented soldier who's doing everything by the book. Trying to keep within the character made me make choices I normally wouldn't. First of all, I failed to romance anyone. While Williams was already a no-go due to being Shepard's subordinate, Lyra was seen more as an asset than a romantic option. She knew stuff. We needed the stuff. End of story. Not to mention, being a civvy made it hard for Shepard to relate to her. Surprisingly, going through that playthrough, I did a lot of renegade choices, but those weren't really done willingly. They happened because making the, quote, Paragon choice would break the rules or jeopardize the mission. I never got to play Mass Effect 2 with this character, sort of ran out of steam, but I'd love to see this military guy finally cracking and letting some humility in, or humanity. Or maybe just doubling down on this soldier for life, which would probably lead him even closer to the renegade character. Number 4, World of Warcraft, I can't roleplay in WoW. Speaking of playing soldiers, World of Warcraft made role-playing within this game impossible to me. As I was leveling up the main, it always felt I was involved in some conflict. Fighting undead in Lordaeron, fighting demons in Outland, crusading against the Lich King in Northrend. From the player's point of view, each expansion made him more and more disconnected from normalcy of human existence. What the hell is this person supposed to feel after spending years surrounded by death? If I had to roleplay with my original priest today, he'd be absolutely shell-shocked and potentially suicidal. Number 5, World of Warcraft. I can roleplay outside World of Warcraft. But it's not all doom and gloom about World of Warcraft roleplay. This, however, might be a bit of a reverse RP, if that makes sense. Back in Wrath of the Lich King, I used to heal raids on my priest with a certain restoration druid lady. At the time, in real life, said resto druid was right out of high school, working in sanitation while I was working in a newspaper, and yet, in game, we were both healers. Fast forward a decade, she made a degree in pharmacology and currently works in a hospital with cancer patients doing medication. I got a degree in physical therapy and for some time worked in the Military Medical Institute in Warsaw. Funny enough how both of us ended up in a medical profession after being healers in WoW. To make it even better, she still plays the same resto druid today. Me? I don't even know what I play anymore. A boomkin, I think? I have a ton of stories from various RP stuff I did over the years, but frankly, I think this email is already too long. Just a quick reflection to finish it all. If you are on a train, do not tell your friends the story of how your D&D group ended up in a village of secret demon worshippers using the first-person perspective. It's all fun and games when you describe the mundane village crap you do upon arrival. It, as I was informed later, makes strangers' heads turn sideways when your group eventually discovers the meat barn, full of rotting animals and human leftovers, and the village headman chases you with a burning scythe. It's good advice in general, I guess. That from Ionis, over and out. So thank you, Ionis, for your discussions on your RP. I quite appreciate it. And going to share very briefly your, as you said, the fan art that came from your one character that has here where you have your deity mentioned saying Zip wants you to join his church, nearest recruiting station, and a location there, and then the other fan art that you supplied with it. So thank you for sharing both of those along with your email. As always, epic as you follow your various RPs. I actually really appreciate that because as I had talked before, struggling with what it means to RP, Ionis, you just gave me like this in-depth idea of what you can do with you really thinking about the story of characters. Like, I have not done that. Holy cow. So that was pretty epic. And it goes back to my thoughts on whether or not that like gives a level of depth to the gaming experience that you don't get just from playing the mechanics like I tend to do. Yep. But that's awesome. Wow. That's some RP. Right.
Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to explore with RP, and I never, like I said, never had the chance to. I hope one day I can eventually, maybe post-pandemic, we can have a chance to actually explore what RP is in D&D, and not just have a combat-based game, but actually have character development and maybe basically. I love the idea of basically writing a cooperative book, a cooperative novel of some sort, cooperative story. That sounds awesome to me. And you described that quite well, I guess.
Well, and that's the thing. Just hearing people describe the event they've had from a much more creative way like that. And I've actually known like the one who's running my D&D group, Shadow Vice, he's taking notes and I think he said something to the effect of like he may be doing it for the purpose of writing it into a book form or something, which is curious for me. We'll see. Because I don't think we've done anything that openly RP yet in the D&D. I want to, but haven't yet. Anyhow. To get back into things about what we're talking today about the industry and COVID and pandemic and all the things that happened, we were talking about some of the things that did negatively get impacted because of it. We talked about initially some of our experiences about gaming and how we maybe did more and how I've seen a lot of examples of people describing that. But some of the other highlights of some things that were affected by various aspects of the pandemic were things like production. And like some stories like the Nintendo Switch got delayed significantly in the Japanese market because of basically not enough people going to the production centers to build things. Oculus Quest became back ordered, and that was a combination. Another piece of it about the demand, I think, going along with gaming in general increasing, is that it far exceeded anyone's production plans. And so you had this kind of twofold event where groups that were actually trying to produce, because right now, if people didn't know, anyone in the PC market who's ever looked for a video card right now should, or even people who are looking for PlayStation 5s, Xbox Series, or in some cases, new cars. There is a massive silicon shortage around the world. Not silicon itself, because it's sand, but the actual production of chips and the production that goes into all the processors and microprocessors and things that go behind all of our electronics has been in shortage. Combination because there was a disruption in production all the way down to the creation of the silicon, right? All the way up to the actual produced chips because of people not being able to go in, changing safety measures, things like that, down to there's been a significant spike in demand across the board of almost all electronics. Now, car production less so, but everything that goes into your television, your graphics card, your RAM, your monitors, all those various things, the components within your consoles have all been under demand because people want to buy these things at the same time as the shortages of the production. So that's been a massive heal for everything. And most companies are trying to get everything out as fast as they can, but they're in honesty, they're competing against each other. Which, side note, congrats to you, Legend Tinker, for finally picking up a 3090 from when you were off yesterday or the day before.
Well,
I forget, the day before.
Right. So I bought the first parts for my PC upgrade that I was planning on doing over Easter in January. I am not going to get the processor until at least April.
Yeah, it's been a real challenge.
Right.
And
So that throws Easter out the window entirely. So no upgrade for me before Easter. It's gonna be between Easter and summer, I guess. And now that I'm looking into replacing the power supply too, it's gonna be a significantly bigger job.
Oof.
Right? where it would have been nice to have been able to get up at, a normal time on, say, Holy Thursday, which we get off, right?
Oh man,
and
yep.
Take the whole setup apart, move it to the kitchen, crack it open, start disconnecting things and unplugging stuff, right? And disassemble the whole thing, clean it out real nice, reassemble the whole thing, and then and just take your time with it. So if it takes all day, no worries, right? Because you can't play video games till it's done anyway. And then, when you think you've got it, bring it back in here, hook up a monitor, the mouse and keyboard, make sure it posts, and then start the installation process.
Yes.
And then the earliest that's going to happen is mid-April now.
Oof. It's a challenge, right? Because if you have all the parts, right, I've gotten to a point where I know I can comfortably go from parts in a pile to first game played in 2 hours in almost any PC build. Like, maybe more if I'm trying to be really clean with wiring and stuff, but you have to have the parts. And, the challenge is, so we're talking about, right, we have this massive hardware shortage that's going on. And at the same time, we're also having this big development shortage because a lot of companies, where we talked in the first half of the show about how our personal experiences showed groups that were able to adapt and sometimes better than other means, but not every industry is as fluid. Now, you would think in many ways that development of software, you maybe would have more flexibility, but it's hard to say. And especially when you get to a point where you maybe have test equipment that is specific hardware or things like that, because those are the things where you kind of have to be in the office to do. And that can be a big challenge. So we're in this weird state where, for me, looking at all the numbers and all of these websites I've found talking about it, they tend to agree that the overall gaming industry is booming right now. That nerds, geeks, whomever, and people, even as the Steam numbers implied, who have never gamed before, have gained an attachment right now that are starting to game, We have more new gamers in the past year than we've ever seen an upswing in a single year ever. And so that says a lot for what people are doing with their free time and how they're trying to distract themselves from whatever. And I guess there's also a piece to be asked or seen about that is the nature of gaming as a whole. We've talked about in past reasons we like to game versus all the various ways you can spend your time for entertainment. How for us, it's often been a level of interactive entertainment that goes beyond many. Yeah, I mean, sure, if I go run, that's interactive. Unfortunately, running doesn't tell a story. It doesn't make me feel emotions other than maybe hurt, pain, disdain, things like that for myself and the decisions I make. And so the games, though, give me like that whole sense of exploration of various emotions, storytelling, things like that I get to adjust and change. And I can do it all in the comfort of my own home. When there's a blizzard outside and I don't have to deal with that, or when there's people who could infect and kill me, I don't have to go out and do that. And so for me, at least, it makes sense. It makes sense why there's been this huge press. How about for you guys? Do you feel like in a similar way that just is almost too natural to be like a major discussion point? Like, duh?
Todd?
Oh, I'm not. I think I got to think on this for a second. Ken, go first, please.
Yeah, I think it is fairly natural. I mean, as gamers, as part of our sort of, it's like you were saying before, we're very naturally indoorsy people, and I think, you know, I feel sorry for the extroverts. You know, like there's so many extroverts out there whose hobbies are not linked so heavily to inside things. Like my wife she's done great throughout this pandemic. But if you asked either of us beforehand, we wouldn't have thought she would be this great about it, because she loves people, she loves friends, she loves socializing, she likes going out to places, seeing new people, and, you know, seeing friends. Like back in Scotland, that's how she would spend her time. Like every day she'd be out seeing friends. That would be hell to me. I love my buddies, I love my friends, I love you guys, but I wouldn't want to see you 7 days a week. No offense to anybody, but I don't want to see anybody 7 days a week. Apart from kid features. Mm-hmm. So I really feel sorry for these people, because suddenly they're stuck indoors, and they don't, you know, gaming to them is what socializing is to us, right? Like if we go and if I go out and socialize, it's a drain of my energy. You know, like I'm tired by the end of it, mentally tired. Right. Mentally exhausted. But if they game, they also get mentally exhausted. And Ken is kind of like that. Like if she games with me, she's like, "Oh, it's been an hour. That's probably enough." I'm like, "Are you kidding? We just started." Yeah. So
like, I haven't gotten warmed up yet.
Yeah, like we've been playing WoW a little bit together, and you know, and that's what exactly what it's been like. You know, we've had 3 gaming sessions, and she hasn't left the Death Knight starting area yet.
Okay.
And I'm just like, I would have done that in half an hour, powered through it, gone through the quests. But she's trying to explore and see things and working out how stuff works. And I'm like, yeah, come on, let's get on with the game though, and then we can play together.
We got to get to the real stuff. Absolutely.
And it's a different mindset, different experience. I mean, we're coming to a viewpoint where we're like, oh, we get to stay where all of our favorite things are and our hobbies and have more time there. And these people are instead saying, oh, I'm stuck in a place where the opposite is true. Nothing I want to do is here.
Sure.
I do feel for the people.
I've lost track of your original question, Wayne. Could you ask me?
Well, just whether for us as gamers this was natural, right, or just in general that the gaming industry was going to naturally boon off of it. I feel for the extroverts, like you said, to a degree. Now there were sides of it, right? There's you can still get outdoors and do things, but it's the with people part that was really challenged, and you know, thus that certain states in the U.S. were just like, it's another pandemic. No masks. No, everybody go out, do everything you want. There's a vaccine coming. Who cares? You know, I mean, I'm 1 shot in of 2. Yay. But at the same time, because I personally, here's the fun part. Here's that blend for me. Game Fest, right? Physically getting 20 to 30 people in my basement together. You guys have experienced. It's always been a good time when I've hosted for people. The number of times we get memories on like social media that said like, hey, remember this? It's a picture of a Game Fest. Every time my friends, they post it and they're like, so when's the next one? So how soon?
Yep. Exactly.
And I put in there, it's like, well, I'm shot 1 of 2 in. What are y'all at? Because I'm not just going to suddenly host one and be like, let's all get together. I had a friend just today or yesterday tell me that her parents were just diagnosed with COVID. And they were not going into the length of, like, she works at a pharmacy. And so she kept working to get them appointments, but they were struggling against her where she was pissed because they couldn't be put off to go drive a half hour to get a shot. No, we'll just wait, right? And she was like, but I found you one. All you have to do is drive a half hour to get, that's too much of a hassle, right? And then just the other day, they both got diagnosed, and now it's hitting them hard because then, like, she was dealing with her dad saying, like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, I just went out to the store for this. And it's like, but you're infected, and you know it.
Oh, my God.
And it's like, but I needed this thing, right? And she's just livid about it because she's working in a pharmacy seeing stuff every day. And so the challenge is we have these mentalities and thoughts out there with it. But so I get that pressure myself.
There's so much to unpack with that statement, right? No, we've been, and I take some responsibility for this, but we've been talking about this thing in this situation where, okay, all of our institutions that used to provide us truth, there are examples of all of them lying to us.
True.
Sure,
right?
You're right.
Either by accident or on purpose, which I guess
think a lot
are the
of us
only
politically motivated on both sides as well. I think there was some stuff that was said that was just untrue, and there was no science behind it, and governmental bodies shouldn't be saying stuff that's untrue or scientifically unverifiable.
And I'm not trying to cast aspersions towards one side or the other. All sides are guilty on this point, right? But so if somebody who's a person of authority says, no, you can totally get the shots, and it gets reported in the media that you can get the shots, but I know that media is not always truthful to me or doesn't always accurately represent what the truth actually is or what the facts actually are, like, how do I trust that? Like, I know vaccines work. I've been vaccinated for all kinds of things, right? So in theory, the COVID vaccine is going to work too, because I've been vaccinated for a lot of stuff. So in my head, right, it says, well, yeah, it's probably going to work, right? But then another news source, which has gotten some stuff right, that the mainstream sources got wrong, says, like, there's a 3% chance that you're gonna die, or some other stupid thing. I don't know. That's just
it's funny because I've not seen anything about the vaccine put out there that said, like, risk of death. The only thing I've seen disparaging it is the conspiracy garbage that it's to put chips in you to track you. Because we have that technology, idiots. To have self-powered, right? Anyone who has a smartphone of any source, shut your mouth. Let alone the whole level of, like, that we have microscopic injectable robots that can transmit our information out to the world and are self-powered, and your body won't come the F on.
Let's go a step further. You have a phone, you have an internet connection, and you're sleeping outside a Faraday cage.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
You are not taking good enough steps. You are being observed. And in that case, what difference does it make if they put a chip in your body?
Oh my gosh.
Facebook is behavior, and if you really believe in that conspiracy, Facebook is behaviorally engineering you anyway.
Yep.
So you posting lies on Facebook is getting behaviorally engineered anyway.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
What difference does it make? Just go get the shot.
Also, returning to the previous thing you said, Wayne, about you weren't sure about the death rates, you can die from taking the vaccine. You absolutely can. Just like you can die if you're allergic to water, for example.
Well, as I say, in the degree, yes, but one of the key things, because I got my shot, and I tossed the paperwork, but reading the whole thing, because admittedly, the Moderna vaccine says this is all experimental. Good luck. But it also has no actual active components of COVID in it. It's not like a lot of previous ones and things like, it's not like ones like what's the horrible one the military and government all was getting back in the day to go? Anthrax, where they actually gave you a version of anthrax at a very low level for your body to create its own antibodies. It's not that. So you actually cannot get COVID from the COVID vaccine, essentially. But instead you're building yourself up as immunity against the potential infection of it. It's this whole thing, right? Anyhow, so yeah, no, you're right, Todd. There are sites that have given too much misinformation. My challenge has been that I can't speak to if people are going to choose information sources that objectively have been giving them false information more so than not. And if they're not willing to go outside of their comfort bubble to look for, and I know this is a very challenging thing in today's day and era to even bring up the idea of a vetted source, the idea of a trusted source, because everyone seems to have a reason that they wouldn't trust any source.
Well,
right?
So do you trust the Silicon Valley technocrats to tell you to be the arbiters of what is and is not true?
Well, obviously not. Elon Musk talks a lot of crap all the time.
So I think Todd's speaking to like the general thing of the idea of like fact checkers and things like that could silence or diminish a thing being shared wildly on their platform.
I mean, this goes back what, 7 years ago, when Twitter first announced that they were doing a trust and safety council. And you went and looked at who was going to be sitting on the Trust and Safety Council, and it's like, well, this is neither trustworthy nor will it make Twitter safe. It's just not. And they're the ones that are arbitrating what is and is not harassment, or what is and is not outside of the terms of service.
Well,
right?
but there's a difference. There's a difference.
Same group of people are arbitrating what is and is not true.
I disagree, because there's a point where, and I think this is one of the messages that keeps getting pressed about where, call it what you will, the people are saying, but my voice is being silenced. There's a difference between people who are actively promoting hate speech, misinformation, and things like that, versus the old adage of taking down or not taking down, right, a thought about something kind of thing, because it's the messages being sold are different. And you have groups who are actively selling disinformation, and it was widely understood and known. And the reason they caught flack and were even noticed is because they got shared so widely that the algorithms kicked off and said, wait, what is this? And when you had multiple sources of what you can consider whether they're valid or not, fact checkers, who basically the ones I always saw witness, and this blew my mind, would simply state, this is what is not true about this specific statement. And in most of the cases I saw, things were not taken down. There was a label posted saying, the information behind this has some concern, and here is the link to a fact check that talks about what is or isn't right. But the information was still available. There were only a very, very small percentage of posts across any of the social medias that actively were taken down or silenced for very specific issues.
I appreciate what you're saying. I don't think it's exactly a counter to what I was saying. I'm just pointing out the fact that I don't know that you can trust the watchdogs.
And that's why I even prefaced
a lot more than I trust a lot of other crap that's out there, though.
Sure.
Well, that's where I did preface. It's hard to even come up with like, here's what whatever source would be, right? It's hard to actually verify and say like, see, all of us should be able to quote unquote trust this, because too many people have made opinions and like outright just throw away when you provide them a source that disagrees with what they've chosen to agree with. And I mean, the problem there is, in my case, when I've had that thrown at me, it's usually, but look at these 8 sites that claim to be news sources because it says, seriously, I'mRealNews.com or daily the beast is right and I know it.com. Therefore, it's real, versus me saying, I don't know, scientific journal this and vetted company this that have been around for 40 years yeah, they may have bias, but
Sure.
they're making money off this.
You say that, Wayne, but in the last 2 weeks, an outgoing New York Times editor said that the only way that they could make their subscription targets was to mold the news in a certain way.
This goes beyond
show me a journalist that doesn't do that.
Well, here's the thing I throw out there. Show me the news site, even the not traditional news site, but the one that's actually fairly vetted news site, or even local news sites, that doesn't have clickbait central as their advertisement piece at the bottom half of their page.
Nope.
When the F did that happen? When did you need to have real news supported by massive, this footer of the page is really just clickbait ads.
I want to get back to your question, Wayne, because I think I've got an answer. I'll simply say that to sort of tie this off, right? We're seeing the implosion of an industry.
Yes.
And
but then we'll hope so.
That is to our very great detriment. That you can't find someone that you trust anymore, or that it's like Rogan, or that it's like Kyle Kalinske, or that it's like Sam Cedar, or that it's like it's some guy running segments on YouTube.
But the challenge I have there is even those guys I don't trust. I appreciate who they are, and in doing so, I think I understand their bias. Because
you're saying
Joe Rogan's problematic as F. I like a lot of his discussions, but he lets a lot go, and he openly says it himself that he is not there to counter people. He's there to have a conversation. And I think at times he allows some horrendous things to happen. But I generally like his approach.
I don't want to relitigate that point. I'm saying, like, yeah.
But you're right. It's hard. But I also still feel like there are places you can go that I feel like if you understand the sources you go to and understand their biases, that's the key point, I think you can still find truth. It's more onerous on all of us to do it. Please go beyond just regurgitating what you hear and think a bit, but I think you can. And that's the problem. I see too many people who don't make the effort.
Can I also refer to something that was said about 2 minutes ago, which was you said that somebody said that in the past, like you implied anyway, that in the past it wasn't like this, and this is a new issue. I think journalism has always been biased. I think we're now seeing so much counter to the bias that we're realizing that no journalism has any integrity. Every single written piece that is not verified in a scientific journal and through due process is implicitly biased. Every single piece. Be it the photography angle, be it the video angle, be it the words chosen, the sentences chosen, the theme chosen, the title chosen, it's all going to have some level of bias that is non-zero.
Agreed. Okay. I will say, though, that it has changed with how egregious people have pushed the line. Because there used to be a self-induced amongst the industry of news level of, we can discuss which stories we want to discuss, but we're not going to outright lie to you. And I think that's what's changed significantly over time. Like you could read the paper and they may not even cover a certain story, but they weren't going to straight up tell you a falsehood if they could avoid it.
It's fascinating. In the past few weeks, for example, you'll see that a lot of the right-wing newspapers and such and news like channels and news sites like Fox News and such, they've been completely avoiding talking about the stimulus checks at all. They don't talk about it. It's fascinating. They just don't even mention it because they feel like it gives Biden some kind of win, which I don't think it does either. I don't think it's necessarily a win for Biden. I think it's something that had to happen regardless.
It's because the previous administration hung their hat on, I got to put my name on the checks. And they don't know how to respond to someone who's like, nah, I'm just doing this because I believe it's the right thing to do. I'm not trying to personally take credit for every action. They don't know how to react to that.
I've seen them mocking these. Like, I saw that. I didn't even care about the news story. It was something to do with some old cartoon has been getting some flack because it had some vaguely racist element or sexist element or something.
Well, it's a combination of Mr. Potato Head, Pepe Le Pew, and Dr. Seuss. All of the false narrative that the conservative media has been pushing about cancel culture that's a misrepresentation of what cancel actually means. Because cancel means a group of people actually going in and saying, don't support this anymore. These are all examples of companies specifically choosing to rebrand or represent their brand in a very specific way to get rid of some problematic pieces that in the past would have been more accepted and today would not. Nobody asked them to cancel it, and nobody told them to stop selling. The company said, we think it's best for us to make more money in the future by being a little more sensitive about these topics and not have these IP go forward. That is a company doing free market capitalism that every conservative worth their salt should be all behind. Instead, they have to falsely propose that there's some kind of bullshit going on because they have no narrative now because their shit lost. Yes, Wayne got political as fuck right there.
So, Wayne, when have you ever wanted to be a skunk? When no, because he's so problematic because it's the culture and you want to.
He's problematic because he actively was forcing himself on female cats that look somewhat like him that he mistook as a skunk. Because his whole thing was to not just say, "Hey, I think you're attractive." It was, "Come here, I'm kissing you when you don't want it." It's, "Come here, I'm groping you when you don't want it." It is actively showing actions that today would be considered very much.
Except I know skunk are vermin, so I never wanted to be one.
But here's the key: only the conservative media brought this up as anything to care about. You're right, Ken. It's a nothing burger. This is a whole lot of nothing that they're using as a distraction because their base is so willing to listen to garbage and get mad about it. For things that there's nothing to get mad about.
All this stuff in the news right now that's about the stimulus checks and the great moves towards helping the unemployed and stuff, and the child tax credits, which are super important movements and the first of their kind. And I was really impressed by a lot of the stuff that came through in this bill. And there's a bunch of other really important political stuff going on around the world, talking about Myanmar and stuff. Like world news. And instead, we're talking about freaking cancel culture? Seriously?
Again,
why do we think showing which cartoons are shown on TV?
Only that news. Only those news stations are doing it. No, everyone else is talking about the real news. Only those ones who don't have anything to actually talk about are talking about cancel culture because they realize their base is willing to get inflamed about it when there's no real argument to be had. And it's amazing how I've watched people get seceded, like they're so susceptible to it, that get pulled into it where they start posting the things, and I'm like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Posting about that, did you not actually read the thing? Especially the Dr. Seuss one. It's like, you obviously don't know the issue. You are regurgitating what your trusted sources told you to get mad about today. What is wrong in your life that you just need something to latch onto that is such nothing?
Culture war for later. Back on topic now.
Yes.
So, coming out of this, how do we think things are going to persist when it comes to the things we've learned and changed with the pandemic when it comes to gaming?
Well, so what I want to happen is the same stuff that's been happening for the last year. Whereas you only have to go to the office for a limited amount of time or to do very specific things. And the rest of the time you can work wherever it suits you best. And so I can work a non-traditional day and there's no side eye or stink eye or anything like that. And I can just do what needs to be done in the order that I want to do things, and it's just fine. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think you can let the business real estate market fall off a cliff.
But you can. Why not? We already have had non-traditional business markets where you rent out space when needed. Yeah. Why not continue that? Because in a market where real estate is so pervertedly overpriced right now in so many markets,
that's the point.
Why not the change happen where you don't need this massive business thing convert it to something useful. Convert that big office building.
That bubble.
But you can. People need to keep adapting with the times. Become residential property. Become industrial property. Become something that matters. Don't turn into just a big place to put people in cubes.
Why not, Todd?
Because it'll make 2008 and 1929 look like bike rides.
So, in the similar way that Ken's talked about it, you don't do it all at once. But I believe there's an opportunity for the smart industry. Here's the way I do it. I don't care what industries die, because if you believe in capitalism, capitalism supports the need. So you create a new need. You get the people who are better at creating a flexible business structure that you can rent property as needed with the right systems, the right connectivity and stuff like that, so that the once a month, twice a month, whatever that you need people in an office, there's a space you can go rent it, and you save your business tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds a year, on not renting out office space.
Keep going.
Well, I'm just saying, you create a new market. And if those businesses that can't adjust to it, because all I do satisfy this one. I'm sorry, slumlord's not a job, right? Or actual owning of a thing and just renting it out to people is not a real job. Therefore, if the company and businesses and stuff that survive off of renting space because I happen to invest some capital up front ahead of people, and therefore that's my whole purpose of life, if you got a business, I'm not shedding a tear. If you couldn't adapt to find a means to be productive or useful in this world beyond I made one business decision at one good time in my life, wah.
Yeah,
that's capitalism. That part, you die, and I don't care if the system doesn't support you.
There will be a huge economical upheaval if this goes ahead, and it will to some extent. I think
landowners aren't feeding the economy like the everyday man. It's not going to hurt the economy. It's going to hurt the handful.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn this into an economics lecture, but I got it. $150 billion a month between the United States and Europe is being dumped into the money supply. And it's been doing and has been done so for the last year plus, and is going to happen for at least another 4 months in America and another year in Europe. That's 20% of the global money supply that's been put into the global money supply. If you add the same activity, quantitative easing, from 2008, 40% of the global money supply has been added to the global money supply since 2008. Okay. Now that should all get manifested in the bigger economy as inflation, except there isn't any, but it has to go someplace, right? So where is it?
Real estate. We've talked about it. Yeah.
Healthcare. Yeah. Education. That's where it all is, and it's all bubble. And if you burst one of the bubbles, the rest of them are going to go. And if the rest of them go, the whole economy goes.
Well, inflation's going to happen. Inflation's going to happen. I don't think real estate's going to blow up as quick as people think, because I think you still need to do something with that land. It's just an adjustment of the model where you make the money of that land. And so the idea is you're just going to have to shift where the value is. It's just like how farmers forever started giving up land to become residential because that's where the money was. And so it's just a restructuring of where the land, because it's still going to be land, it's still going to be a resource, it's still going to be necessary. It's just going to be a restructured from a cube farm to hopefully something else useful, because you still need space for everything. And so real estate won't die. It's just who you're selling to and what you're selling. So I'm hoping companies will adapt and change. Because what if part of that adoption was creating better technology sources so that one company doesn't own a building, maybe 30 do, and in a limited share sense. That again, when it's needed, because I always said this, there's a point where you might actually need a team, like you're saying, Ken, about collaboration and programming stuff, to maybe come into an office together and program. But I don't need it every day. And so I'm hoping it goes forward like that. Actually, and to get back on the gaming piece, I know this is going to leave this off a cliff, but Babs posted something there I thought was really interesting, and I'm kind of curious your thoughts, both of you. He said, for gaming, we normalize a hell about a lot of people gaming versus dealing with real life. Just like the great failing college classes of the World War craft, he's saying he forecasts government demonizing gaming again to explain all ills. going forward because there's such an upsurge in gaming, essentially escapism or doing that kind of thing. I mean, gaming's been the scapegoat since gaming has existed because, violence didn't occur before there was gaming. But his idea that there's going to be some level of, the system, whatever, picking gaming as another scapegoat is how I'm hearing that. Do you guys think something like that might happen?
Even if it did, I don't know that I care. Right? Unless to the extent that it affects, how I live my day-to-day life from a safety perspective, right? Where somebody in the public-private combination company, like at the top of the hierarchy, I don't know if it's this way in Scotland, Ken, but like the National Railway Authority is partially public, partially private. The national oil, like the oil energy sector in Norway, is partially public, partially private. I don't know if it's that way in Scotland, but it is.
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody in the Ministry of Transportation reads some report that says, I don't know if we're getting the same productivity between 9 and 3 that we used to, so we better get everybody back into the office. Like, then I care, right? But if some idiot member of the House of Representatives is going to try and get Grand Theft Auto banned in Illinois.
Oh, jeez. There's too many carjackings, Todd. It must be because of Grand Theft Auto. Nobody ever carjacked before that game.
Nobody stole a car before Tommy Vercetti.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that I care. Right? I'll go back to. I'll stop stuttering, first of all. Second of all, I'll go back to
I did not even know she's stuttering.
Yeah. I'll go back to something that I said in 2014. I don't need anyone's tacit approval to call myself a gamer.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I never needed anyone's tacit approval to call myself a gamer. My parents, my teachers, my bosses, when I first got a job, it's like, what do you do in your free time? Oh, I play video games. Okay. At members of the gaming media or enthusiast media, like, I don't need any of these people's tacit approval to call myself a gamer. I was a gamer in 1981 when I first got into television. I'm a gamer today. That hasn't changed, and it's not gonna.
I agree with that comment. I agree with that idea. And I agree for the most part. I don't care what is being pushed until it gets towards the point of actually getting laws passed. That's my concern. It's like, and this is a total here in the Aurora thing, that there's a huge push here for the police force to have more open access to calling anything street racing, and a new ordinance to try to get anyone who might have been associated with something called street racing to have your car immediately impounded.
Yeah, that's
God.
Yeah, it's all because a couple actions that have happened, because again, frustration and people wanting to get out and do things that look really bad, allowing for the panic reaction of people trying to do a power grab, which is what government always tries to do, whether it's local or federal or big, however it is. It's similar. It's just like, now I care, because that means the one time I might do a display of speed because I accelerated faster than someone liked, they could up front take away my freedom and rights by taking my vehicle from me, and then I have to go prove to some group or source that I didn't meet whatever criteria before I can get access to it back. Right? That's
insane.
That's the repercussions people don't see. And so things like that, now I care. So same thing in gaming.
Sure.
You get, if it's just banning trying to sell a certain game in a certain place, yeah, but if it passes and if it starts to exceed further, no dice. What I do want to see come out of this is, for me, when it comes to gaming, I like that it's become more acceptable in a lot of ways as a positive pastime right now, because people are like, we need something, and gaming's blown up. And I continually hope, we talk about, there's an idea, and this is a whole nother conversation that takes hours beyond, about the elitism and kind of gatekeeping in a good way, perhaps, of gaming, or when we talked about who's a gamer, what's a gamer, those kind of things where I want certain things myself out of gaming that if you expand too big, starts to water down. I don't want every game to be built for a mobile platform like a telephone. You know, because really, if you're going by the numbers, we should only be selling mobile games on phones. Yeah. I don't want that because I like my experience on my PC. But if you look at those kind of things, right, oh gosh, I'm going to lose my train of thought here. But there's the idea that I want to make sure gaming keeps growing and it's accepted and more people are into it, because I like that it's no longer as demonized for me to say I spent my weekend gaming. Yeah. I like that a lot. Like, I liked the cred that came from being the nerd that says I still have a bunch of people come to my basement, we hook up physically and actually game. I still like that, and I like that separation. But I also really like that I can talk to someone about a video game and it's not like, what? You know, when I grew up in high school, it was you play video games? Why aren't you going out and playing baseball? I was like, yeah, you nerd. I can do that too, but I really like games.
Right? Oh, I've gotten that speech before too, and that's
the thing. I think our generation, Todd, man, no, we all heard that.
I got to. Here's the thing. It was not from who you would think. It wasn't from teachers or parents or adults or anything like that. It was after I moved to Denver and a work colleague that I started going to clubs with.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you know, I would talk about something in game and he's like, "Do you want to go play softball?" Like, no.
Right?
Like I haven't played softball in 5 years. Why would I want to start playing now? Well, yeah, but you can hit a baseball with a baseball bat, can't you? Sure. Why don't you come play softball with us? It's like, because I would embarrass myself, and I don't feel the need. And that at that point, that was when I got the speech. Like, every day of my life, I'm trying to be better, and I don't understand how video games make you better.
Okay,
like, I'm not gonna justify it to you, but you know, not everything has to be like the most serious thing. We're not taking a hill. Like, most of the time, I go into the office, I do some analysis, I'm exhausted at the end of the day, and I just want to shoot demons in the face to unwind.
Right.
After my day.
I get you completely. I've had the exact same experiences over the years. I've had friends back in like high school and even college years who just did not understand that my idea of unwinding was to play video games. They thought it was a stressful thing and they didn't get why it would be fun. And I've also had teachers in high school who did tell me that playing video games is not a career, first of all. I love that that's been proven wrong now, by the way. But also told me that it's not productive and it does nothing for you. If all you do in your spare time is play video games, you will not become a productive member of society. And I just love looking back at all the people that I know over the years who play video games. Generally speaking, I don't think I can say they have better jobs, but I can't think of a single person who's had any like major failures in life, as in like, I don't know, like had to get put into rehab, for example, or something like that. Who played video games. But I can think of several people who didn't play video games and did go out clubbing and did go out and do that sort of stuff, exclusively social stuff, sporty stuff, who did end up having more difficulties in life. And I don't think that's fair to generalize that way, which is a bit unfair because it is very small sample in his personal experience, it's anecdotal, etc. But
it's also coincidental.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that people who play video games are effectively solving interactive problems consistently for fun. They're effectively solving logical problems of varying types and reaction time problems and pattern definition problems constantly. You know, and I think if you want to enter any sort of like IT-based field, for example, or any problem-solving field at all.
Yeah.
Games are going to help you train your mind into that mode of thinking.
So you stole my thunder, because I was going to tie this back to capitalism.
Sorry.
It is not at all. It's you
good lead in.
The fact that you made my point validates my point. Playing video games lends itself to a certain discrete set of skills that in this job market that is very technologically based are in demand in a big way. So the people who have analysis and problem solving and data manipulation skills are sought after, and rightly so, right? So yeah, it should be significantly more acceptable than it is. There are people who don't get it, who I think have tried to use the popularity of gaming to try and not become the Steve Buscemi meme while becoming the Steve Buscemi meme. Like we got to gamify this. It's like, well, you don't. And people are going to. It's like hiring a knockoff. It's like hiring a knockoff actor to try and I want the real deal. Like I want Rick James, or I want a good Rick James impersonator. And you can't get the Rick James impersonator, so you hire the 5th best Rick James impersonator.
Chappelle's not doing that anymore, man.
I know this is fake. I didn't want to know that this is fake. And that's so I get that vibe a lot from the people who say we've got to gamify this. I guess. Sorry, probably a tangent, and we're already late.
We are. Well, I mean, but it goes around, I think, a lot of our passion about gaming as a whole. And I'd like to believe that in the past year, we've had a lot of advantages in it. And actually, I have heard personally more positive response from gamers I know for getting through a lot of the challenges that having to deal with the consequences of a global pandemic and finding ways to accomplish or deal with it as best we can. That gamers as a whole, I've heard, have done better than many groups. There's a whole nother level of what gamers can do to, like you say, the sports fanatic or something like that. And so a lot of us, and there were a lot of memes that did the whole oh wait, something changed, but that's my everyday, right? That people said when you realize the response for a global pandemic is my Saturday, that is oh. So for me, I think the challenges we're going to look at going forward is, and I hope a lot of the same ways that some of the things that are good about this get normalized, that gaming's not such a thing, that flexible schedule, the way that your time are more appropriate. And, I would even leap out on a, thing that I really hope is the discussion about a 40-hour work week happens, and the discussion about in-office happens more. That it's more about productivity than it is about hours spent in a domicile or some location.
Sure.
Yes.
Because it makes you think there's productivity.
Yeah, less time that I have to fill a chair, more time that I get stuff done. 100% agree. I just want to I want to get this out, because if I don't, I'm going to forget, and I won't be able to tie it back next week.
No problem.
The reason why I was talking about the public-private combinations is that I don't know who the people are at the top of the hierarchy, and I don't know who influences what the decisions that are made by the people at the top of the hierarchy. And because they're public-private combination, it's government in some respects that are at the top of the hierarchy. So there might be a regulation someplace that we all have to go back to the office when there's not extenuating circumstances. I don't know. Because I don't know I know what most of the work laws are. I can't recite any of them to you, but I know what my work week is. I know how much vacation I'm supposed to get. All of that stuff, so that I can keep my boss, who I'm on a first name basis with, so it's not real. But I can, make sure that I'm getting all the things from my boss that I'm supposed to be getting.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no idea. I have no idea that there's not a Ministry of Transportation regulation that says outside of extenuating circumstances, everybody has to be in cubicle hell.
I honestly believe it is just because that's how it's always been.
And sure. And that's why the decisions are going to get made, right?
Well, and that's where I really hope there's pushback. I don't think
so. I mean, I hope so too. But I've been dealing with this on a daily basis now, a workday daily basis, where things are happening simply because that's how we've always done them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I said in a meeting last week, talking about a fundamental paradigm shift in the way business is being done, we're the kids in Les Mis. Like, what we're asking for is revolution. and we have to be ready for the consequences of asking for revolution.
Interesting.
And on that note,
which is we all get shot. Metaphorically, we all metaphorically get shot.
And on that note, we definitely need to finish up the show. We are 10 minutes over.
But I like talking to you guys. No. Ken,
I like talking
please
to you guys,
let us get out of here.
We need to go and record another show now, and I'm now 10 minutes late for that.
Take us home.
You have been listening to ShowX live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or wherever else, or maybe not live and just recorded, and that's okay too. We appreciate and love all of our listeners. Thank you so much for being part of our community. We love you guys being here. We love communicating with you. We love your emails. We love your chat in the IRC. We love your support in every which way. Even that tiny little bear thing does too. That Todd was showing on the screen. And that circus bear or whatever that is.
It's my birth month bear. It's an October bear. By the way, all Beanie Babies, all I think worthless.
Pretty close to.
October is the best month to be born, by the way, Todd.
It is absolutely Millennium Bear.
You can check us out all over the interwebs. linktr.ee/showx. That's linktr.ee/showx to find our Instagram, our Reddit, to find our YouTube, to find our Twitch page, which you're probably already aware of. You can find our Facebook, you can find our Twitters. All these various things can be found on linktr.ee/showx. So go check that out for all of our various things. That's the best way you can support us as well, is by liking our show, subscribing to our channel, be it on Twitch or YouTube, retweeting and sharing us on Instagram and Twitter. All that stuff is very much the most help that you can provide our show. Please do so. We appreciate that every single time, including going onto the Instagram page and resharing our latest post as your story. That's something you can do as well. We also can receive your emails at VtWShowX@gmail.com. That is not actually in the Linktree, so that one you do need separate. That's VtWShowX@gmail.com. Please do send in your emails. We do enjoy reading those. We do another show. It's called Where My Pro's At. It's a YouTube-only show, and it gets uploaded approximately weekly. The cool thing about being YouTube is we don't need to have specific times anymore, so we just sort of do it when we can. This upcoming review is going to be on Lifelike, which was a community choice. That's Life L1K3 by Jay Christoph, I think the author's name was. So come and join us. So keep an eye on our YouTube account on Versus the World video for the most recent episode of Where My Pro's At. Thank you so much for hosting, Wayne. We really much appreciate your advanced skills and your endurance in keeping up the hosting after all these years. Very much appreciate it. Todd, thank you for your handsome smile. And that's it. Just your handsome smile.
Thanks.
And everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Very much appreciate it.
All right. With that, everybody, we're out of here this week. If you've appreciated it or have any thoughts on the things we talked about today, please email us in at VtWShowX@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. And with that, we're going to have a very big out here and say goodbye with a massive salute to all of you out there, and we will catch you again next week. We're out, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. See you next zombie. Good night.